welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are going to fundamentally change the way you look at your car.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't mean we're looking under the hood or talking horsepower or the infotainment system.
Okay.
I'm talking about the only 4 things on your vehicle that actually touch the planet Earth.
It is interesting you frame it that way because tires are, without a doubt, the most overlooked safety feature in modern history.
They really are.
We just see them as these black rubber donuts. They're a grudge purchase.
Oh, completely.
Nobody wakes up on a Saturday excited to go drop $1,000 on rubber. You only do it when you have to, and usually you're annoyed about it.
Absolutely. It's a boring expense. It feels like buying insurance or, I don't know, paying taxes.
Yeah.
But looking at the stack of research we've pulled together for this, that perspective is actually kind of terrifying.
It is.
Because we treat them like accessories,
Yeah.
but they're doing all the heavy lifting.
They really are. When you strip away all the marketing and just get down to the physics, tires are the single point of failure for everything else your car does.
Everything.
Your anti-lock brakes, your traction control, your lane keep assist, your fuel efficiency, none of that works if the tires don't grip. And here's the reality check.
Okay.
The contact patch, the actual amount of rubber touching the road at any given second, is about the size of a human handprint.
That is the image that stuck with me reading through this, a handprint.
Yeah.
4 human handprints holding a 2-ton metal box on the road at 70 miles an hour in the rain.
It's a sobering thought.
It really is.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to decode these things. We want to understand the secret language written on the sidewall, which I admit I have ignored my entire life,
Most people do.
and figure out the chemistry of why they're black and filled with air or nitrogen, and talk about some critical safety limits that I'm guessing most of us are driving around oblivious to right now.
Yeah. Exactly. We're going to stop looking at them as rubber circles and start seeing them as a complex piece of engineering that's constantly fighting physics.
So let's start with that secret language.
Mm.
If I go out to my driveway right now and actually squat down, which my knees will hate, and look at my tire, I just see a jumble of numbers and letters. It looks like an algebra equation gone wrong.
It does look chaotic, but it is effectively a highly precise spec sheet. It tells you everything you need to know about what that tire can handle. It's not random.
Okay, so let's unpack one. Let's use a standard example from the data. You look at a tire, and it reads 255/55R16-105V.
Perfect example.
Okay, let's take that piece by piece, the 255.
That is the width of the tire in millimeters, measured from one sidewall to the other.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, the wider the number, the wider the tire, and generally the more rubber you have on the road for grip.
Then the /55. That's the one that always confuses people. It's not a measurement in millimeters, right? Because 55 millimeters would be tiny.
Right. Good point. This is the aspect ratio. It's a percentage.
The percentage of what?
It tells you the height of the sidewall compared to the width. So in this case, the sidewall height is 55% of the tire's width.
Okay, but why do I care about the math? What does that change for me as a driver?
Well, think of the sidewall like the sole of a shoe. A high number, like 70 or 75, is like a thick, cushioned running shoe.
Okay.
It has a lot of rubber to absorb bumps, so it rides smooth. But if you try to turn a corner fast, it squishes. It feels, wobbly.
And a low number.
A low number, say 35 or 40, is a low-profile tire. Think of that like a racing flat or even a high heel with a very thin sole.
Ah.
It's stiff. It doesn't flex. So when you turn the steering wheel, the car reacts instantly. It feels like it's on rails. But the trade-off is you are going to feel every single pebble, crack, and bump in the road.
So if I want to look cool in a sports car, I get the low number, but my back might hurt later.
Got it.
And the R. R just stands for radial construction.
And what's that? That describes how the internal cords of the tire are arranged perpendicular to the direction of travel. You might occasionally see a B for bias built or D for diagonal on, like antique cars or trailers, but 99% of modern passenger tires are radial.
And then that last bit, the 105V. That sounds like a vitamin supplement.
Yeah, it's your safety limit. The 105 is the load index. That's the maximum weight that specific tire can support. And the V is the speed rating.
The speed rating.
Yep. Every letter corresponds to a max speed the tire can sustain without failing. V, for example, is rated for up to 149 miles per hour.
Okay, wait. If the speed limit is 65, why do I need a tire rated for 150? Is that just upselling?
It's not just about the raw speed, it's about heat management. A tire rated for higher speeds is built to dissipate the massive heat generated by friction much better than a lower rated tire.
So even if I'm not racing?
Right. Even if you never drive that fast, a V-rated tire handles highway heat stress better than, say, an S-rated tire during a long summer road trip.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, looking at this sidewall, there was one code in the research that honestly shocked me. I think this is going to be the biggest, wait, what, moment for anyone listening.
I think I know which one you mean.
It starts with the letters DOT.
This is the one you absolutely need to know. It's essentially the birth certificate of the tire. It usually ends in a 4-digit code inside a little oval. Let's say it says 1017.
Decode that for us.
It's the week and the year. The first 2 digits are the week, the last 2 are the year. So 1017 means that tire was manufactured in the 10th week of 2017.
Okay, so that's useful if I own the tires. But here's the scenario that freaked me out in the notes. I walk into a tire shop today. I asked for 4 brand new tires. They roll them out, they look shiny, they've got the stickers on them. I pay full price. But if I don't check that code, I could technically be buying tires that were made 5 or 6 years ago and just sat in a warehouse.
Yes, and it happens more often than you'd think.
Is that okay? I mean, they haven't been driven on.
It's legal, but it's not okay from a chemistry standpoint because rubber ages. It oxidizes. Even if a tire is sitting on a shelf in a climate-controlled warehouse, the volatile compounds that keep the rubber soft and sticky are slowly evaporating.
So I'm buying a new tire that's already halfway to its deathbed.
That's a great way to put it. If you see a new tire with a date code from 4 or 5 years ago, you should refuse it. You want fresh rubber.
That is wild. I am definitely checking that next time. It's wild that there's essentially a user manual stamped right into the side of the thing.
It really is.
But even if you can read the codes, it doesn't explain why the tire looks the way it does. I mean, we've got all this tech, self-driving cars, electric engines. Why are tires still just black rubber donuts? Is that purely tradition?
Hey, could you get hot pink tires if you wanted?
Yeah, exactly.
You technically could, but they wouldn't last very long. The black color isn't a style choice. It comes from a compound called carbon black.
And what is carbon black doing besides making them look goth?
It's a reinforcing filler. Natural rubber is actually a milky white color, and it's pretty soft.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it wouldn't withstand the abrasion of asphalt for very long. When they add carbon black, it drastically increases the tensile strength and resistance to abrasion, but its most critical job is acting as a UV stabilizer.
A UV stabilizer, like sunscreen.
In a way, yes, the sun is brutal on rubber. Ultraviolet rays act like microscopic scissors. They want to snip the long polymer chains that hold the rubber together.
Okay.
Carbon black absorbs that UV energy and converts it to heat so the rubber bonds don't snap. If tires weren't black, the sun would crack and crumble them in a fraction of the time.
So the black color is actually an engineering necessity for survival. That's cool.
It is.
Now, let's talk about what goes inside the tire. Because I see this debate constantly on car forums or when I'm getting an oil change and the guy tries to upsell me. The nitrogen versus air debate.
Ah, yes, the little green valve caps.
Right. Is this real science or is this just a way to get 10 extra bucks out of me?
It is real science, but the real-world benefit for a daily commuter is debatable. Here's the chemistry. Nitrogen molecules are physically larger than oxygen molecules.
So they're fatter.
Essentially, yes. Rubber looks solid to us, but on a microscopic level, it's like a sponge with tiny pores. Oxygen molecules are small enough to wiggle through those pores over time.
But nitrogen molecules are too big.
They're just big enough that they have a harder time escaping. So a tire filled with pure nitrogen will lose pressure slower than one filled with regular air.
Okay, so better pressure retention. That sounds good.
It is good. And nitrogen is also a dry gas. Regular compressed air from the gas station pump contains moisture water vapor.
Right.
That moisture expands when it gets hot, causing your tire pressure to fluctuate wildly during a drive. Nitrogen is stable. That's why race cars and airplanes use nitrogen. They need that predictability.
But for me, driving to the grocery store and back, is it worth paying for?
For the average driver, probably not. Regular air is already 78% nitrogen.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah. The benefit you get from going to 100% nitrogen is small. It's mostly a laziness tax. If you use nitrogen, you might not have to top off your tires as often. But if you just check your pressure once a month like you're supposed to, regular air is perfectly fine.
So I shouldn't feel guilty.
Don't feel like a bad car owner if you skip the nitrogen.
That makes me feel better. I've always felt a little guilty saying no to the green caps. Here's a weird one from the research that feels totally counterintuitive.
Okay.
We buy new tires to be safer. But the notes say that brand new tires fresh from the shop can actually be slippery.
It does sound wrong, doesn't it? You expect maximum grip immediately. But think about how a tire is made. It's cooked in a metal mold.
Like a waffle iron.
Exactly like a waffle iron. And just like a waffle iron, you don't want the rubber to stick to the metal when you open it. So, manufacturers spray the mold with a release agent, a lubricant.
Like greasing a cake pan.
Precisely. And when you get the tire, some of that lubricant residue is still on the surface of the tread.
Yeah.
It takes a few hundred miles of driving to scrub that off and expose the raw, grippy rubber underneath.
But that implies I'm driving out of the shop on lubricated rubber. That sounds incredibly dangerous.
It can be if you aren't expecting it. I mean, it's not like driving on ice, but you have significantly less traction than you will a week later. So the advice is just don't peel out of the tire shop parking lot and maybe take it easy on the corners for the first tank of gas.
Good to know. Let's pivot to the mission, because walking into a tire store is overwhelming. There are so many types. People ask, what is the best tire? All the time.
And the answer is always, it depends. There is no single best tire. There is only the best tire for your specific environment. It's all a trade-off.
So let's run through the scenarios. Start with the most common, the all-season.
The jack of all trades. They're designed to do everything okay.
Just okay.
Yeah, they're decent and wet, decent and dry, decent in light snow. They usually have long tread life, but they aren't masters of anything. They're the safe middle ground choice for most drivers.
Versus summer tires.
Yeah.
Now, I used to think summer tires were just for track days, but I hear people putting them on daily drivers.
You can, but you need to understand the chemistry. Summer tires use a very soft, sticky rubber compound. In warm weather, they are like glue. Amazing grip, responsive steering, but, and this is a huge but, they have a glass transition temperature of about 45 degrees Fahrenheit.
Glass transition. That sounds ominous.
It means that when the temperature drops below 45 degrees, that soft, sticky rubber turns hard. It becomes like a plastic hockey puck.
One way.
It loses all flexibility.
Yeah.
So if you try to drive a summer tire in freezing temps, even on dry pavement, it's like driving on hard plastic. You have zero grip.
So that brings us to winter tires.
Mhm.
It's not just about the tread pattern, it's the rubber itself.
Correct. Winter tires are designed to stay soft and squishy even at sub-zero temperatures. Plus, they have sipes, thousands of tiny little slits in the tread blocks that bite into snow and ice.
So if you live somewhere with real winter,
If you live in a place like Chicago or Montreal, all seasons usually aren't enough. You need the chemistry of a winter tire.
what about run flats? I feel like those are becoming standard on luxury cars,
Right.
mostly because they don't want to give you a spare tire anymore.
That is the trend. The idea is that the sidewalls are heavily reinforced. If you get a puncture and lose all air pressure, the sidewall is stiff enough to hold the car up.
For how long?
You can drive for about 50 miles at a reduced speed to get to safety.
Which is a great safety feature, but I've heard people complain about the ride quality.
Well, remember our shoe analogy. To make that sidewall strong enough to support a car without air, it has to be very stiff. So a run-flat tire generally rides harder than a standard tire. You feel the bumps more.
Right. Okay, so we've bought the right tires. We know what they're made of.
Mm-hmm.
How do we stop them from killing us?
Yeah,
Let's talk about the silent killers.
good topic.
We mentioned the date code earlier, but I want to circle back to it because of something I realized while reading the notes. The spare tire trap.
Oh, this is a classic scenario.
So my car is a 2016. I have never touched the spare tire. It's buried under the trunk liner. In my head, that tire is brand new. It's pristine. But based on what you told me.
Based on the chemistry, that tire is a ticking time bomb. It's been sitting there for a decade. The rubber has been oxidizing that whole time. It's suffering from dry rot, even if you can't see the cracks.
So if I get a flat on the highway and I put that 10-year-old spare on and I try to drive 60 miles an hour.
There's a very high chance it will delaminate or blow out. The structure just isn't there anymore.
That is terrifying. So we need to be checking the dates on our spares, not just the ones on the wheels.
Absolutely. If your spare is more than 6 to 10 years old, you need to replace it, even if it's never touched the pavement.
Okay, noted. Now, rotation. I know I'm supposed to do it every time I get an oil change, but I'll be honest, sometimes I skip it. Does it really matter?
It matters because of physics. In most modern cars, the front tires are doing almost all the work. They steer, they handle 70% of the brake and weight transfer, and in a front-wheel drive car, they pull the vehicle.
So they're getting beaten up way more than the rears.
Significantly more. If you don't rotate them, your front tires will be bald while your rear tires still look new. Moving them around, usually every 5 to 8,000 miles, ensures they wear down evenly.
It keeps the handling consistent.
Exactly. And it keeps the warranty valid.
I learned that the hard way once. Now, let's get into the scary stuff. Troubleshooting. What happens when things go wrong? Let's talk about blowouts.
The catastrophic failure.
Right. Now, in my head, a blowout happens because a tire is too full. Like a balloon. You put too much air in, it pops. But the research says that is almost never the cause.
No, it's almost always the opposite. The number one cause of highway blowouts is underinflation.
Walk me through that mechanism. How does low air make a tire explode?
Imagine taking a wire coat hanger. Hold it in two hands and bend it back and forth really fast. What happens to the metal right at the bend?
It gets hot.
Yeah.
Really hot. And eventually, it snaps.
Exactly. That is your tire sidewall when it's low on air. Because the pressure isn't holding the tire shape, the sidewall collapses and flexes. It bends every single time the wheel rotates.
1,000 times a minute on the highway.
At least. So it's physically bending back and forth like that coat hanger.
And that generates massive internal heat.
Massive. The heat gets so intense that it literally melts the glue bonding the tread to the carcass, or it weakens the rubber until, bang, the structure fails instantly.
That is a much more visceral explanation than check your pressure. It's not just about gas mileage. It's about not melting your tires from the inside out.
Precisely.
Okay, let's say the worst happens. Or maybe just a garden variety flat tire. You hit a nail. We need to talk about emergency skills, changing a flat.
A skill everyone should have.
The source material had to walk through, but I want to focus on the mistakes. Because I feel like everyone thinks they know how to change a tire until they're on the side of the road in the rain, it's dark, trucks are zooming by, and panic sets in.
The environment changes everything, but the most critical mistake people make actually happens before the car is even in the air.
Which is?
They forget to loosen the lug nuts while the car is still on the ground.
Explain why that matters.
Think about it. Once you jack the car up, the tire is hanging freely in the air. If you put a wrench on a lug nut and try to turn it, what's going to happen?
The wheel's just going to spin.
Exactly. You have no leverage. And lug nuts are tight. You need the friction of the ground holding the tire stationary so you can put your body weight into breaking those nuts loose.
So you don't take them off.
No, you just break the tension. Then you jack it up.
That saves a lot of swearing later on.
Yeah.
So, step 1, safety. Flat ground, hazard lights, use chocks or a rock to block the wheel so the car doesn't roll off the jack. Step 2, loosen the lugs. Step 3, jack it up using the manual's jack points.
Please don't guess on the jack point. If you put the jack under a plastic trim panel or a fuel line, you're going to have a very expensive bad day.
Then you swap the tire. Hand tighten the nuts. Lower it slightly so the rubber touches the ground. And here's the second place people mess up.
Yeah.
The tightening pattern.
Yes. Do not tighten them in a circle. You need to use a star pattern.
Like drawing a star.
Think of it like tightening the head on a drum. You want the pressure to be even. If you tighten one nut all the way down, the wheel might tilt slightly. It won't sit flush against the hub.
So you go across.
You tighten one, then you go to the one directly opposite it. Then you cross over again. This pulls the wheel flat and evenly against the car.
If you don't do that, you get wobbling.
You get vibration, and worse, the lug nuts can actually work themselves loose over time because the wheel isn't seated effectively.
And obviously remember that your spare tire is usually a donut, a temporary tire. It's not meant for a cross-country road trip.
No. 50 miles per hour, 50 miles distance. Get to a shop.
We've covered a massive amount of ground here. We've gone from seeing tires as just black circles to understanding the carbon black that protects them, the secret codes on the sidewall, and the physics of why they grip or don't grip.
And if there is one takeaway, it's that tires are a dynamic safety system. They aren't static chunks of rubber. They are alive, in a sense. They are aging, they are reacting to heat, they are fighting friction. You have to read them.
It really puts that handprint image into perspective. That tiny patch of rubber is doing so much work.
It is. And I'd leave the listener with this thought. The next time you walk out to your car, before you open the door, just take 10 seconds. Look at that sidewall. Think about the fact that the air inside is the only thing holding your car off the pavement, and the rubber is the only thing keeping you on the road. And seriously, when was the last time you checked that 4-digit date code? Because physics doesn't care if you thought the tires were new.
Check your dates, everyone. And check your pressure. Don't melt your tires with that coat hanger effect. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Drive safe.
Please like, subscribe, and get notified.